Okay, the next Elly Ameling discussion video on our list is the video on message, what you're trying to say, what you need to convey to your audience during the course of your performance. She starts off the video by saying, have something to say, which seems like a given, but if you are in what my acting teacher this semester calls standing stick, arms by your side, stiff back, and you're like, if I move, I'll die. If you're in that position and you're just kind of vomiting out words, it's kind of like, don't waste our time, you know? Make us feel something, say something to us if you're going to stand on stage and perform for me. If you're going to, I'm giving you some of my time, give me something out of it. All right, here's something that she said that I disagree with, which is pretty rare, honestly. She says that a singer's purpose is to convey the intent of the composer and the poet. And she says nothing less and nothing more. She kind of goes on a brief tangent talking about how performers shouldn't add much of themselves really to the piece. Like, don't use your imagination too much. I disagree with that. Because you're the performer, you're the one doing it right then and there, and how are you going to relate to maybe some of the experiences of the composer or poet that you've never been through unless you put it in terms that you can understand and become a more efficient performer that way. My opinion is that whenever you perform a song, it's the poet's message, the composer's intent, going through the lens of your and your pianist's interpretation. The two of you are interpreting this piece and you are sharing your interpretation of the work with the audience. So you need to give a little bit of yourself. Otherwise, it's not you performing. Otherwise, it doesn't matter who's singing it because it's going to be the same thing, is what my take is based on what she's saying. I don't know if she really means it that strictly, but that's kind of what that leads to, in my opinion. What else did she say? She says, here's one. Every performer, every performance should be a surprise to the audience and the performer. I am consistently amazed with how this class ties into my acting class that I'm in this semester, the Voice for the Actor class, teaching us how to use our breath and how to read things efficiently and those kinds of things. One of the things that my acting teacher has been driving home is the concept of the surprise breath. And what she means by that is a lot of times when people speak, they don't have their sentences planned out from beginning to end, as you can tell with how many times I'm stuttering and going and ah in these videos, but it feels more natural if it's off the cuff. Anyway, when they speak, they don't plan their sentences out, so they can't plan their breath out accordingly, so they'll take a breath in the middle of a sentence like I did just there. This is called the surprise breath, and so if you know your text, you should be able to introduce the surprise breath and slightly alter the delivery of a line, keeping yourself and your partner on their toes to make sure that you are being organic and also that they are responding organically to whatever you just gave them. And that is something that I entirely agree with and that she touches on when she says everything should be a surprise. Nothing should be set in stone because it keeps things fresh. And you may discover an emotion in the song that you didn't think was there before. You may discover a musical thing that you've never tried before, but we're like, hey, maybe I'll try this. Maybe I'll take a longer pause at the fermata or something like that. Every song has its own voice, set it up well. She was talking about how the audience needs to know what the general mood of the song is right at the beginning. So if it's a dramatic song, you need to have a dramatic face. If it's a happy song, smile. And this, again, ties into that acting thing of like whenever you're doing a monologue, something out of context, show us the moment before. You don't start acting when you say your first word. You start acting a few seconds before, showing the audience what just happened that prompted you to say whatever you're going to say for the next 30 seconds to a minute. It's the same thing with art songs. We consider it with opera because it's part of a larger story, and so are most monologues part of a larger story, but we don't think of it a lot with art song. And that, I think, goes back to the whole make it your own. What is the moment before for you if you were saying the text of the song? what would prompt you to say it, and that can be your motivation, your drive behind why you're singing this song. So I thought that was a very interesting connection. Also, she says 3 gestures before intermission and 1 after. I kind of disagree with that. I also think that as someone who talks with their hands, any like da 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 frivolous gestures and too many of them can be distracting and irritating. But a lot of times, in my opinion, the problem with gestures comes from a lack of confidence and a lack of commitment. The performer will oftentimes want to move, but if pretend my hand's at my side, they'll do like one of these, where they'll like barely move it away from their leg. Like they clearly want to move, but they're too scared to commit to it because they don't want to be vulnerable, and they're in standing stick, and they're like, I'm not going to move. I cannot move. Yes, you can. Just make sure that it's meaningful, it has a purpose, and that you're confident in what you're about to do. So this is a bit of a longer one, but I had a lot to say on this one.